All right, today we're going to dive into a topic that, well, almost everyone in the working world has some strong feelings about: the performance appraisal. I mean, seriously, just think about it. For so many of us, the second you hear the words performance review, you get that little knot in your stomach. But why is that? Why does a process that's supposed to help us get better so often feel like we're about to be judged? Right. It's that mix of anxiety, confusion, and that feeling that maybe the whole thing isn't quite fair. That's at the core of it. But here's the good news. It absolutely does not have to be this way. So, in this explainer, we're going to break down what these appraisals are meant to do, where they go so wrong, and most importantly, how we can actually make them better. So first up, let's unpack that feeling of dread. We need to get to the bottom of the anxiety and look at what these reviews are actually trying to accomplish in the first place.
What's so interesting is when you look at the official definition, it sounds really constructive, right, doesn't it? Communicating, establishing a plan, improvement, those are all good things. The problem, the friction, happens when that ideal world smacks right into reality.
So let's imagine that ideal world for a second. Let's look at the actual blueprint for a good review. When it's done right, what's it really supposed to achieve?
A well-run appraisal really does three critical things. First, it gives a fair, solid basis for those big administrative decisions. Things like promotions, raises, all that stuff. Second, it helps pinpoint where you, or maybe the whole team, could use some extra training or development. And finally, and this is arguably the most important one, it's meant to encourage genuine performance improvement with really clear communication. And this is how it's supposed to flow. It's actually pretty logical. You start by setting specific goals so everyone knows what you're aiming for. Then you define what success actually looks like. You pick a method to measure it, you do the appraisal, and then you have a real conversation about it. It's supposed to be a cycle, you see, not just a one-time thing.
Okay, now let's get into the toolkit. Managers have a bunch of different methods they can use for these evaluations, and believe me, the one they choose can totally change the entire experience for you. So here are two really different ways of doing it. On one side, you've got the essay appraisal. It's totally subjective. The manager literally writes a story about your performance. But on the other side, you have graphic rating scales, where you get a number score on things like job knowledge or dependability, on a scale from 1 to 5. One feels very personal, the other feels very data-driven. And then there's this one. It's called forced distribution, but you might have heard it called stack ranking. This is where managers have to sort their team into a curve, a top, middle, and bottom group. So even if every single person on the team is a rock star, someone still has to be in that bottom 20%. And that's the key. You're not being judged against a standard, you're being judged against your coworkers. And this, right here, brings us to the real heart of the problem: human error. It doesn't matter what method you use, these appraisals can be twisted by all sorts of biases that make them feel just deeply unfair. Let's call them the deadly sins of performance reviews. Let's start with a really common one. Have you ever had this happen? You pull off this amazing, heroic project right before your review, and suddenly, it's like all the struggles from the past 10 months just disappeared. Or, maybe the opposite happened. Yup, that has a name. It's called the halo effect. It's when a manager is so impressed or so unimpressed by one single thing you did that it casts this positive or negative halo over your entire review. It just colors their judgment on everything else. All right, here's another one for you. Do you ever notice that the people getting the best ratings also happen to, have the same hobbies or come from the same background or talk just like your manager? Is that a coincidence? Well, maybe not. This is a classic one. It's called the similarity error. It's a totally unconscious bias where managers give better ratings to people who remind them of, well, themselves. They're not rewarding objective performance, they're rewarding a reflection. And what about this one? No one's a superstar, but no one's a bad performer either. It feels like every single person on the team lands right in the middle, in that meets expectations box, year after year after year. This is known as central tendency. It's basically when a manager just plays it safe. They avoid giving really high or really low scores because they don't want to have a tough conversation or have to justify their ratings. And the result? The real high performers don't get recognized, and the people who actually need help don't get it. So just to do a quick recap of these big errors, you've got the leniency error, where a manager is just too easy or too tough on everybody. The halo effect, where one thing overshadows everything else. The similarity error, which is that mini-me bias. And central tendency, where everyone just gets stuck in the middle. When you see them all laid out like this, it's pretty clear how easily a review can go off the rails.
But listen, it is not hopeless. I promise. There are real, concrete, proven ways to fight back against these biases and make this whole process something that's genuinely useful. So let's talk solutions. Really, the solution is all about moving to a system that's just fairer. That means we focus on behaviors, what you actually did, not some vague trait like initiative. It means making feedback an ongoing, year-round conversation, not a once-a-year ambush. It also means training managers to see their own biases, and crucially, having a real two-way conversation after the review is done. And this brings us to one of the most powerful modern tools we have to fix this: 360-degree feedback. Instead of just relying on one person's point of view, which we know can be biased, you get input from everyone you work with: your boss, your coworkers, even the people who report to you. It creates a much richer, more balanced, and way fairer picture of your performance. So, as we wrap this all up, I want to leave you with this question. Look, the system isn't perfect, but for now, it's often the one we've got. So whether you're the one giving the review or the one getting it, think about this. What's one thing you can do, like maybe keeping a log of your wins all year or asking for specific behavior-based examples, to make the process work better for you? Because a better review isn't really about a score, is it? It's about genuine growth.